Now before we begin this video, major MCU spoiler alert, you've been warned. Alright, now that Thanos has snapped his fingers and half of all living beings have been dusted, it's hard to imagine any of the past MCU antagonists being that much of a threat. But once Thanos is out of the way, here's hoping, whoever steps up to the plate next has some Titan-sized shoes to fill. While it's likely that the MCU will integrate a new big bad, hopefully of galactic proportions if you know what I mean, it's likely that the films throughout Phase 4 and Phase 5 may feature some familiar fiends that are alive and kicking. Or at least to our knowledge. Who knows who else could have been dusted. So with all that in mind, we're jumping into speculation land today with our list of the top 10 Marvel villains still lurking in the MCU. And at number 10, ZEMO. Helmut ZEMO is one seriously dangerous man, as we saw firsthand in Captain America: Civil War. While he wasn't responsible for instigating the Accords that initially caused the rift between the members of the Avengers, he sure as hell fueled the fire, setting Iron Man and Captain America against one another. ZEMO, unlike his white supremacist counterpart in the comics, sought revenge after the events of the Battle of Sokovia, where he lost his family in the destruction and chaos. Like many others, he blamed the Avengers. ZEMO assassinated T'Chaka, the king of Wakanda at the time, and framed Bucky Barnes as responsible. Steve Rogers came to his defense, whereas Tony Stark, who had signed the Accords already, wanted him caught. This unraveled the team, with members having to choose a side, and ultimately led to them facing off against one another in an epic battle. Later, ZEMO lured Cap, Bucky, and Tony into his trap to reveal that Bucky had been the one who killed Tony's parents, something that Cap already knew, but Stark did not. And you can imagine how Stark took that bit of news. Where we last left off with ZEMO, T'Challa had prevented the character from committing suicide, leading to him being locked up in a containment cell at the HQ of the Joint Counter-Terrorist Center. When Everett Ross mocks him about his plan failing, ZEMO responds with, "Did it?" And he's spot on. It really didn't fail. To the point where in Infinity War, Tony still hasn't made up with Steve Rogers. Although now that both heroes are on separate planets and half the universe is now dead, they may see beyond those differences. Regardless, a mastermind like ZEMO is not a threat to be taken lightly. His mind is what makes him so deadly, and we wouldn't be surprised if he popped up in the MCU somewhere in the future. In at number 9, Justin Hammer. Hammer first appeared in Iron Man 2 as a supporting villain, trying to make use of Whiplash to get the upper hand on Tony Stark. While the character came off as more of a nuisance than a threat, Hammer has been spending a whole lot of quality time with himself, and a much younger boyfriend, in a prison cell, and he definitely has a bone to pick with Stark. His last name though is what interests us the most. During the Dark Reign and Siege story arcs between 2008 and 2010 in the comics, Norman Osborn created an organization by the name of Hammer, which replaced S.H.I.E.L.D. Since S.H.I.E.L.D. has fallen in the MCU, it'd be curious to see if Justin were to return, or if Osborn popped up into the MCU if Hammer would come into play. Up next, number 8, Ronan the Accuser. You're probably thinking, wait, what? Ronan the Accuser is dead, you fool. Yeah, that's true. He was killed off in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. But the character makes this list because he's actually making a return to the MCU in the upcoming Captain Marvel film, which is set in the 90s. This could be interesting, since Ronan is Kree, and we know that the original Captain Marvel, Marvel, will be in the film, portrayed by Jude Law. How he'll fit into the mix is curious, but may suspect it will address the Kree-Skrull War plot from the comics, and perhaps dive deeper into the Kree-Nova War too. While we don't know how large of a role Ronan will play, many fans are hoping that he'll have a bit of better characterization. Some felt that the film didn't really do him justice, although he did give us this fantastic moment in the films.
Bring it down hard.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro.
And then this even better moment, which, for obvious reasons, didn't make the cut.
Me versus you.
It's on.
And at number 7, Baron Mordo. In Doctor Strange's debut MCU film, Baron Mordo is an ally of his rather than an antagonist. In the comics, he's a bit of a baddie. While the two have very different perspectives, and Mordo ends up going separate ways from Strange by the end of it, the film didn't really set him up as an antagonist, but there was that post-credit scene, which we'll be talking about in a sec. Mordo was disillusioned at the end of the movie that the Ancient One had been pulling energy from the Dark Dimension. In the comics, it's Mordo who wants to kill the Ancient One, and wants to become Sorcerer Supreme, and even at times worked with Dormammu. So there's a lot of text to work with there in the films. Now at the end of Doctor Strange, the post-credit scene, we see Mordo visit Jonathan Pangborn, the man who led Strange to the Ancient One in the first place, and he steals his energy, stating that Earth has too many sorcerers. It's safe to assume that Mordo could return if Doctor Strange gets a sequel, and that he's on a mission to stop magic from perverting the natural order of things. Up next at 6, the Frost Giants. We were introduced to the Frost Giants in the first Thor film. From the planet Jotunheim, one of the 9 realms, they came into conflict with Asgard after invading Earth, specifically Norway. They were crucial to Loki's plan to deceive Asgardians, and his father Odin. Odin into believing that he rightfully deserved the throne, all by double-crossing the Frost Giants' king and his biological father, Laufey. Thor gets in the way of this though, and destroys the Bifrost Bridge, and in doing so actually ensured the survival of the Frost Giants. They're shown again in the prelude comic to Thor the Dark World as noting that the 9 realms were slipping into chaos. The very last mention we saw of them in the MCU though was in the Collector's Museum on Nowhere, where the Collector had gotten his hands on a specimen of one. From what we know, their species is on the decline, and ever since the events of the first Thor film, they're a pretty much broken race, and they definitely have a bone to pick with the Asgardians for sure. While the 2 Asgardians that they have the most beef with are now dead, Odin and Loki, we're sure their desire for vengeance could easily be applied to Thor. In at number 5, ZODIAC. Back when Iron Man 3 came out on the Blu-ray release, a one-shot short film was included on the disc, and it featured a story with Agent Carter kicking some serious butt and getting her hands on something called the ZODIAC Serum, a powerful and deadly liquid contained in a vial with a symbol that looked a lot like the astrological Mercury sign that S.H.I.E.L.D. would later say they destroyed, but then a terrorist named Baker would discover still existed and then steal, as one does. In Captain America the Winter Soldier Infinite comic, Captain America, Black Widow, and Crossbones apprehend Baker. Speaking of comics in the Marvel Universe, ZODIAC is the name of a supervillain team, consisting of members named after the astrological symbols. Could this hint to a new team of villains somewhere down the line? Well, likely not. But there was one version of ZODIAC who operated solo during the Dark Reign story arc, who was obsessed with ruling the criminal underworld. So perhaps that's not the last that we'll see of that serum. In at number 4, Scorpion. Scorpion is a villain ripe with potential, primarily since we haven't seen his full evolution into the character yet. In the comics, Scorpion is a Spider-Man villain who first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 19 in 1964, and was a private investigator before becoming the test subject of an experimental process that gave him his powers. He is outfitted with a club-like tail, and he becomes quite the foe for Spidey, minus the fact that the process has messed with his mind and made him insane. Now in the MCU, he popped up in Spider-Man Homecoming as a criminal associate of Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, and in the mid-credits scene of the film, he's really beat up and in prison thanks to Peter. He goes up to Adrian and says that he has friends on the outside who want to join forces and kill Spider-Man, and inquires about whether or not Toomes knows his true identity. The Vulture denies it. It seems incredibly likely that we'll be seeing Mac again as Scorpion in the Spider-Man sequel, set to be released after Avengers 4. And at number 3, the Mandarin. When the Mandarin first appeared in Iron Man 3, fans were pretty disappointed. It was revealed pretty early on in the film that it was all just a giant hoax, with Ben Kingsley's character playing the Mandarin as an actor. But then in the one-shot short film All Hail the King, we follow Trevor Slattery, Ben Kingsley, who posed as the Mandarin for Aldrich Killian in a high-security prison, now being filmed by a documentary filmmaker named Jackson Norris. Norris turns out to be a member of the Ten Rings, the terrorist organization led by the Mandarin, and he tries to kill Slattery for making a mockery of his master's name. So that means there is a real Mandarin still out there, so who knows if he'll pop up and affect the MCU somehow. And at number 2, the Grandmaster. This one's kinda obvious. How could the MCU not bring back Jeff Goldblum? Aside from that, the Grandmaster made a great antagonist. As an Elder of the Universe, he holds a whole lot of power, and despite having his subjects turn on him in the Revolution during Thor Ragnarok, the Grandmaster was still alive and kicking by the end of it, or rather trying to talk his way out of getting killed. So we have zero doubts that he'll be making a return to the MCU in some way. And finally, in our number 1 spot, Red Skull. Red Skull was the main villain in Captain America the First Avenger, and while we thought the character met his end there thanks to the Tesseract, he popped up in Avengers Infinity War as the Guardian of the Soul Stone on Vormir. It was a cameo that surprised many a Marvel fan, and answered any questions that fans had about where he had blasted off to, even though most just figured he died. Now that his spirit no longer has anything to guard, what has become of Red Skull? One theory suggests that in Avengers 4, our remaining heroes will have to travel back through time, far enough to obtain each of the Infinity Stones before Thanos can get his hands on them. And who will encounter Red Skull and the Soul Stone? Well, his nemesis Captain America. Alright, there we have it, friends. Which of these characters do you think is likely to return to the MCU? Which ones would you prefer to never see again? Let us know all of your thoughts and feels in those comments below. Now if you dug this video, show some love by hitting that like button. Hit subscribe if you want to hang out with us some more. And if you want more videos on the MCU, make sure you click on that playlist that's currently flashing on your screen. In the meantime though, thanks for watching everybody. I'll catch you all in the next video.